Hey everybody, Jim Benson here with my friend John von Seggern, who runs the FutureProof Music School. Worked with us for a time. I've known him since we were very short, since the
Hi, Jim.
1970s.
You don't have to give that much away.
Oh, I'm very authentic.
Okay.
And what's happened is, so John's music school is kind of like this human AI hybrid of education. And in my practice, in working with my clients recently, we've been doing a lot of things where we'll do some work, then we'll feed it into the AI, we'll get some results, then we will process those results as humans again and go back and forth. And so I thought John and I could have a conversation today about that relationship, about what we can count on AI to help us with, how AI is challenged in some areas and how in some areas is better than we are at some things. So before we started talking, my intro here, John, you were talking kind of about how the structure of FutureProof has grown as you've gained a little bit more sensitivity to how LLMs actually operate. And do you want to talk a little bit about what the school is and then what those epiphanies have been?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on, Jim. So at FutureProof, we are training electronic music producers, and we have an AI music coach called Cadence. And then we have a team of instructors who are master producers in techno and dubstep and house and related genres like that. So our format is the students are working through courses online. Cadence is there as a interactive chat bot that knows all the material that can help them. And then the human element is that we have monthly check-ins with a one-on-one mentor, and we also have live group workshops almost every day. That's kind of the main focus of our community. We want to bring people together online. You're not going to bring people together with watching videos or talking to chatbots. So we have them on Discord, and then we have a lot of these Zoom workshops. So we've tried to figure out how AI and the human teachers can be used together optimally to help the students learn the best. I think the main lesson is the AI is great for teaching foundational skills and helping them with that. Our students are coming to us, though, to learn more advanced secrets, I would say. For example, about dubstep production is a good one. If you just ask one of the big LLMs, for help making a dubstep track, it can give you a little help, but it can't give you the kind of it can't share the experience of mastery that our teachers bring to it. And not only that, but beyond the technical aspects of music, a lot of it is about making a career and dealing with other people and getting booked for gigs and things like this. So that's where you also really need to learn from somebody who's done it before. But anyway, Jim, you and I were talking about, what are the areas that AI is good for and not good for. I think that's a really important thing to understand, because to get the most out of using AI and whatever you're doing, you need to understand what it's best used for and what you shouldn't be using it for.
Okay. And what are you finding right now that its strengths are? Because I see you buried in it almost daily now. So it must have a strength in there somewhere that's getting some value for you.
I mean, what might be more useful to talk about than the educational use of AI at the school is how we're using AI behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So as you know, a few months ago, of course, we're always typing things into the different LLMs to ask for advice or do research or look things up or whatever. But a few months ago, I realized if we're going to automate processes in the school, the most high value task to automate are tasks that the CEO does.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not about replacing the people calling on the phone or doing your sales calls. The most high impact would be if you could have an executive assistant that could advise you on what to do more efficiently. And so this is a classic case, I think, where AI can be very useful. LLMs are very strong in finding patterns across large amounts of data. And we're all drowning in data these days. So that's why lately the term context engineering has become really buzzy. And it's all about the LLMs we have now are very smart. They can process a lot of information and make intelligent deductions from it. It's all about providing them with the right information. And it's always a struggle to do that. That's most of the struggle in designing these AI projects. So anyway, I have an AI assistant called Nova, and Nova is plugged into live data sources from everything in our business, from our Stripe account and our Google Analytics, our Meta ads, our student activity on our website, our Discord. It can read all of our course content. It can search our website. It can do deep research. It can help me with all the things I do in a day. So I can use it to do things that I would do or help me with things far more quickly, you know? Like if I'm, for example, if I'm going to have a meeting with somebody, I can put their LinkedIn into Nova 5 minutes before the meeting and say, what should the agenda for this meeting be? Because it already knows everything that I'm doing. So it's like, hey, remember you're working on this project. Maybe this person would be a good contact for this.
Oh, nice.
You know?
So there's the adage that all models are flawed and some are useful. I think that with large language models, it's like all large language models are flawed and sometimes they're useful. But I get a lot of value out of using them. But it's always iterative. You very rarely ask the AI or the LLM, hey, give me this, it gives you that, and then you say you're fine. When we're processing data, the LLM will process that data, it will come back, and there will be a certain percentage of it that is amazing and a certain percentage of it that is perhaps even dangerously bad. And so when you're allowing, when part of your user experience is that interaction, what have you done behind the scenes to help reduce the likelihood of the students getting a erroneous result or a misleading result, even if it's in something that is easy, quote unquote, easy for the LLM to do?
As far as that goes, our LLM is mostly being asked questions about music. I mean, part of that is one thing you can do is restrict your LLM to stay in its lane. So our LLM Cadence, our tutor, will only talk to you about music and creativity and related topics. If you start talking about politics or something, it won't answer. So it's not interested in talking about current events or something. If you ask it something about, say, music theory, and this includes a lot of the questions you would ask it, it can answer those questions out of its general knowledge. It knows everything about music theory already. I don't need to give it an encyclopedia of music theory. But if you bring up specific artists or events or places or brands or products, then my LLM always goes and looks it up on the internet to confirm the details. It seems like such an obvious fix, but just by doing that, like, it hardly ever makes a mistake.
Oh, interesting.
I would say it's not very difficult. The web search for LLMs is pretty fast, so that doesn't actually slow it down that much. Most of the time of my LLM is spent thinking about its memories of its past interactions with you, actually, because it has a very deep memory.
There you go. Yeah, you've built a snub bot. If you ask it something it doesn't care about, it's just like.
Well, we did build a snub bot. Do you remember that one when I had that one deployed?
Yes, I do.
Technostic, and it made whatever you told it would be. No, that's not so cool. I've seen better. And it made my one friend. It made Steve so mad because he would always be like, "I just heard this new record," and then the bot would pop up and say, "No, it's not so great." And even it was funny because even though he knew that I made it and I made it to do that, it still irritated him.
Well, so that's actually a thing is that I have specifically created my bots to not have a personality. So initially I was always like, you should be friendly and you should do this. But I've actually told them at the moment, please just don't have a personality. Just give me the results. Because at one point I found that it was like that the LLM would get so hung up in how it was supposed to respond cutely that it would spend less time thinking about the actual result.
Oh, I see. Well, I don't know about that, but I always, in my long history of playing role-playing games, I
Yes.
always enjoyed making non-player characters, and I find it the same in this. So I
Yes.
enjoy giving them their little personalities.
Yep.
But the main one that is funny that I interact with is the one I use for development advice that I told is a goth.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
it
yeah.
has a very eloquent way of speaking. Very amusing to me. It's like the path through the darkness of the code lies elegantly through the shadows or something like that. It always talks like that. Sometimes it even leaves little comments in code that are like that. And then later LMs will see it and wonder.
They're like, I'm not sure how to build an exception for that.
But following on from what you were just saying, I think what we were talking about before we started recording, it's important to bring up that LLMs make lots of mistakes generally. And it's just important to know that. So I think one of the difficulties that a lot of people have with AI is they think, if they don't know too much about it, they think this is some kind of super smart computer brain that knows everything. And it kind of is. It pretty much is, actually. But it doesn't work that the same way that people think. So if you just know a little bit about it, it's generating words that fit together well. That's how it works. It's just really, really, really good at it. That's why I like using the ones that are based on web search, like Perplexity, because it pulls in a bunch of actual verified facts before it starts doing the step of putting the words together. But if you recognize that, then you can recognize, like, yeah, it's not always right. I can accept that. I've come to realize that it's right more than most people anyway. Because people do the same thing. It's like a typical, you half remember something. You're like, Jim, did you know that you're 23% more effective as a coder if you practice some productivity technique? And you'll be like, really, is that true? And I'll say, yeah. And then I kind of don't remember, and I'm, I think I read it in Forbes or something. And maybe I made it up, or maybe I heard it wrong or something. But your brain tends to generate retroactive explanations.
Yep, retrospective coherence.
Retrospective coherence. There you go.
Yes.
And which also happens even with, as you well know, I know, with our own motivations. We know that sometimes you do things and then your conscious brain, you don't even know why you did it yourself. It was actually because you were hungry or something like that. And then your brain is like, oh no, you did that because you were irritated at them because of something else. But actually you were just hungry.
Yeah, it's in the thing I wrote a few weeks ago, I basically said that it was like a very mediocre assistant, and that mediocre assistant was mediocre. So it would get things wrong and it would get things right, and it didn't relieve you of your job to figure out what right was, but it did help you get your job done by giving you something that was at least half right. And
I mean, that's one use of it. I think of it more like I am still doing everything because I have to decide if it's right, like you just said. But I can do like 4 times more work, and I can do some work that's much harder that I wouldn't be able to do at all without it. That's how I think of it.
So Carl Scotland and I have a series of business strategy classes, workshops that we have coming up. And so in our Motabot, inside the Motabot, there is everything that Carl is links to everything that Carl has ever written on business strategy. It has all of my books, all of the classes we've taught before, and all of the classes I've taught with Carl. So today I basically got in and I said, format for Luma these 3 courses, and it came up with them, and I had to edit some stuff, but by and large, I put up 3 sales pages in less than half an hour, because not because it did my work for me, but because it just concatenated
It did
things
most
from
of your work
various
for you.
sources. Yeah, yeah. Well, it did the reassembly.
Yeah.
So what happened
right.
is in our past work, we had created a bunch of different word Legos. And then we said, build a bear out of all these Legos. And it says, here's a bear. And we're like, bears generally don't, carry a purse. So I'm going to take the purse off. But in general, yeah, it came
That
up with
was a very Jim explanation of that concept.
Indeed. So earlier, before we started this, you were talking about your role of using expertise in music production, vis-a-vis like what happened to you when you were working at Native Instruments, and how you built this assumption that when you approach technology, that technology would screw things up. Like regardless of what kind of technology it is, it could be the guitars back there being plugged into the wrong thing or whatever. But anytime we approach technology, it does almost what it's supposed to do. And then if you don't understand the gap between almost and how to get to something that actually works, then you get really angry with the technology. So
we've all done with LMs at least once, I'm sure.
So can you kind of just retell that story in your own words just really quickly, because I thought it was pretty compelling.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think the key to that, what you just said, Jim, is that's especially important when you're working with very new technologies and trying to push them to the edge. So I am a musician, as you know. I'm an electronic musician, and I've been working on the cutting edge of electronic music for 20 years or more. And so a lot of the things I've done have been with computer-based performance. And in the early days of that, it barely worked. Like we could hardly do it at all. Sometimes, like I DJ'd with Steven with two computers. One reason being, if one of them failed, the other person keep doing it, it's gotten steadily more reliable over the years because the computers have gotten far more powerful. It's the main reason. But in those, like, this is in the 2000s, I was very involved in experimental electronic music, and I worked at Native Instruments, which is a German music software company that was really pushing the edge of what was possible with their software back then. So we were always using things that were prone to break or glitch out, or it was easy to, no matter what you were doing, it was easy just to put too many things on at the same time, and then your computer would start to break down. So you always had to have in order to be, and this is still true today, in order to be a performer, especially, or a producer of electronic music, you need to have a sense of the limitations of your equipment, what you can probably do, how you're always trying to approach things to optimize the setup so you're not unnecessarily using CPU power, always trying to work within the limitations of your machine. So anyway, what we were talking about before was just that I recognized at some point that when I work with the computer and make music, things are happening all the time that other people might see as errors or mistakes or glitches, and I just know, oh no, that's just the behavior of the system. Like when you do this, it's likely to glitch out, or oh, I see you can't do that because it doesn't work or whatever. So you just work around that if you're a power user. And so I feel the same with the LLMs. Like we're asking them to do all these things that they can barely do. They've only existed for a short period of time. They're evolving very quickly. The faster they evolve, the faster our expectations evolve. So, it was only like, 9 months ago, I guess, end of last year, I was using, and like many people, I was using ChatGPT to generate little scripts. I was like, oh, we need a little embed for my website. Can I make this with ChatGPT? Cool. And then my scripts kind of getting longer. And then after a while, I thought, I hear people talking about these coding tools like Cursor. Maybe I should check that out. And I did. I started using Cursor to code. I'm not a developer, but I'm able to build apps now. And even though I'm not a developer, still I recognize, like, yeah, these coding LLMs make mistakes all the time. Like they're getting better and better, but still it's very rare that you say, oh, okay, I want this app to do this and that and this, and then connect to this and pull in all this data and do this. And it'll build like 3/4 of it. And then you try to run it, and it's like, oh, it won't compile because of this, or oh, it can't connect to that because you need to fix some detail of it or something. But that's just expected, you know. I couldn't. That's great. Like I wrote 3/4 of it in 5 minutes. That's incredible. Like, you know. So, and I find it very exciting how fast they're advancing, but still, no matter how fast the technology advances, we're always going to be asking them to do bigger and bigger things. That's the nature of technology. It's just like our computers, like we're always asking them to do more. As soon as they have more memory and can go faster, then the apps get bigger. And
yeah, it's insane. Like the things that power any of the equipment here behind me, they would have made my Toshiba Tecro 100 basically burst into flames. But that was the computer that I wrote, that I created that international digital collaboration eugenics building album on way back in 90, 97, 98. Well, wow. Yeah, 97, I think. But it still actually surprises me how powerful the tools were that we had back then that were able to run on the machines that we had at that time. The unrealistic expectations that people have of technology right now are leading some people who have decision-making authority to make some pretty catastrophic decisions.
What do you mean? What are you referring to?
Just by laying off thousands of people because of AI, and at least that's the given excuse. And so one of my desires in having conversations like this is to allow people at all positions to know what the reasonable applications of these technologies are right now, so that we can apply them to the best effect possible and not make decisions that are either premature based on the advancement of the technology, or overreaching based on the capabilities of the people being able to deploy the technologies that are already there. And so I feel like people have a fundamental misunderstanding both of the technology and of operations of the things that they already have access to, like their business. So when I go in and help somebody with a value stream mapping exercise, it is clear that no one in the business knows actually how the business operates.
Right.
And then we're saying, well, we're going to replace a bunch of people with AI. It's like, you don't even know what you're replacing. You don't know what these people are doing to keep the company running. So it's
analyzing the business seems like a good use of AI, actually.
Well, so it's been,
or at least to help make sense of all the data streams.
Yeah. So what we've been doing recently is user journeys or value stream mapping or things like that, where we will build out the actual map with a team. Then we will use AI to organize that information and make recommendations based on it. Then you give it back to the team, and the team says, this is idiotic, this is great, this is ridiculous, this is awesome.
Right.
And then you can sort from that. And then when basically what ends up happening then is the AI is just another perspective on the work being done.
Right.
Yeah. And then they see that perspective, and then that causes them to shift their own in some hopefully helpful ways. But what we're definitely not doing is just saying, hey, can you tell me how my company operates, Claude? And Claude's like, certainly, you know, blah, 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 blah.
Right. Okay. So that made me think of a couple things. One thing is that when you talk about going back and forth between the LLM's analysis and then showing that to the team again, one of the reasons that the team would have a different perspective is that, and again, I know you're very familiar with this concept, but there's a lot of implicit knowledge in groups of people and teams and companies that people pick up just kind of implicitly. It was never explained to them that this company is about this, but everyone kind of got the idea from just seeing everybody else that was doing it that way. So that knowledge isn't written down anywhere to put it into an LLM. Even if you had even if you had some dystopic nightmare where you had cameras all over your office and microphones and you were watching everyone and listening to them all the time, the LLM still wouldn't pick it up, because it's a very human thing. I don't think we even understand how that works. So that is one huge thing. And tied in with that is that one of the important human capacities that LLMs don't have is continual learning. That's really one of the huge things that hasn't been cracked, if ever. And so by way of meaning, I just heard that podcaster Dwarkesh Patel, he really summed this up well. He was saying, if you hire a low-level employee and throw them into some tasks that they don't really understand that well, they won't do that well, but gradually they'll do better if they're a smart person with some potential, and you give them some guidance, and eventually they'll get the hang of it, and then they'll be able to do it. And with an AI, you're kind of trying to set it up to do it right from the beginning. But if it doesn't do it right from the beginning, it's never going to get any better at it. So that's kind of the big issue with that. So you can make it better by observing what happens and then, tweaking it to not do that anymore.
So with the value stream mapping, we're trying to bring a lot of that implicit knowledge or expectations or beliefs that individuals have that differ from the other individuals in their team. So they'll feel like they're already aligned, and then they get into a value stream mapping exercise and they find out that they have very different ideas about how work works. At the same time, no matter how granular we get in that exercise, people are always going to leave things out. There's always little bits of context, as they're post-it notes. How much context are you going to get into those post-it notes? So you end up getting a lot, definitely enough to work with and definitely enough to align around, but also enough or not enough for the AI to get a full read on everything that's going on. And so, like if one person on the team is just kind of notoriously annoying in a very predictable way, the team will generate all sorts of behaviors to help that person not have to be annoying in that particular way. But they're not going to put that in the value stream mapping exercise. Like, this is where we don't talk to Karen so that Karen won't freak out on us, or this is where we give way too much information to Phil, because if we don't over communicate, then he feels left out. So those things are going to be things that would show up then in the subsequent things. And then almost all sorts of cognitive biases are also things that the team isn't aware that they're engaging in, and that still has an impact on the operations of the team, the level of toxicity in the team, and things like that also aren't going to show up on a map like that.
I would say, actually, if I don't know if you tried this, but if you invited the LLM to the meeting, it would learn from those interactions. It's possible to set it up that way. I have one of the note-taking apps for my school meetings, and at the end of it's making a summary of all my meetings. So at the end of the week, what I've been doing is each meeting where we were meeting and strategizing things and planning for the company, I take that summary and I'm just pasting them all in this document. But that document is in this folder that gets vectorized and indexed every time I update it, and then it gets drawn into my AI Nova. So, and then that vector database, it's a RAG database. It prioritizes things partially by recency. So the things that we've been talking about at our meetings just naturally come back to me from my AI. And so I can be like, what do we need to do this week again? And it'll say, well, last week you guys do this. Maybe you forgot. Or it started picking up on things that we were talking about and like putting them back into our strategy, So so there are ways to help them keep up, but you have to be, again, you have to understand how they work, what they're doing.
So we'll just maybe we'll just close with this. So with that particular application, you've got conversations that you're having that are directed and we'll just say successful. And then you have conversations that are maybe meandering or having subtext or some way when we'll say unsuccessful or combative. How does the AI not come back and recommend to you from those meetings things that you decided not to do or that were mentioned by somebody who was not being helpful at the time?
That is an interesting question. I don't have a lot of combative meetings, so I don't really have that problem. I mean, okay, I could answer that question though. So one thing is, and the only reason I'm doing this manually is because the app I'm using, I can't automate it, but my app is not putting my meeting notes in that folder automatically. So I look at them at the end of the week. I don't have, it's not like I have 100 meetings, maybe I had 5 meetings like this. So I just look at it and I'm like, should I put that one in?
Oh, gotcha.
So I don't put them all in. So there is kind of a bullshit check, like, oh yeah, all we did was talk about video games that day. But even then, there are a couple other things. So the vector database, for people that aren't familiar with that, that's how we're storing info for the LLMs to draw on. It's converting it into numeric vectors by the meaning of what it's storing. That's how it works. So if you're frequently talking about the same things and planning the same types of strategies, you're kind of, I think of it as like you're building up like a node of probability. Like it's more and more likely that it's going to pull things out of there because that's what you're talking about all the time. Also, my AI has a really deep memory, and if I tell it like, no, we're not doing that anymore, like it'll pretty much remember it. It can't, and it uses graph memory. It's a platform called Zep, ZEP, that they just provide memory as a service, basically. But so between those things, it kind of evolves over time. But then again, it's also one of those things like it'll still say things that are wrong sometimes. I just recognize it, it's like, oh yeah, you should do this. I'm like, no, we already decided not to do that. Or I see, oh, it's still telling me to do that. That means we must have left that one document in there from before, and then I'll kick that out of there so that it'll stop telling me that we should do that because I already decided not to do that.
That I've definitely seen, where I did remove one book from my system because for some reason it just really liked that book. But the book was an outlier and it wasn't even very long, but like anything
that's probably why it was like, oh, this is an exceptional I don't know why. That was one of your books?
Yeah, it was the Y Limit Whip book, and just parts of Y Limit Whip would show up in anything I wanted to do. So it's like this week I would like to invite people over for dinner, and like, okay, you should do a speedboat exercise. No, I'm not going to do a speedboat exercise, and people coming over for dinner. So they're adorable the way they get fixated on things. So
well, I have one more thing to say for this podcast. New LLMs keep coming out all the time. That GPT-5 Codex came out like 2 days ago. Oh my God. You should be trying to use that.
Well, they're all there, and they're definitely, like you said, one of the reasons why I didn't go as deep as you did into the individual technologies was because I knew that it would become a full-time job, which for you, it pretty much has been. You put a considerable amount of time into this.
I have, but I guess, the different LLMs have their own flavors. They're like different guitars or synthesizers or something. So I would like to use, it would be cool if you could just use one, but you can't really. They're good at different things.
Yep.
I'm using Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT and also some of the Chinese ones like every day.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that you get you get different responses, and that by different builds, there's better things to do with some than others, which is why those builds don't always become fully deprecated.
I mean, the pattern is that all the companies have released something that was really great, and then it got steadily worse.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them admit to doing it, but that pretty much all the products have done that at this point. So
Yeah,
there's definitely some kind of economization or something happening.
Yeah. I asked for help for lyrics to a song that I had written, and I wasn't satisfied with the lyrics. So I asked it, I said, can you include some sensibilities from like Yes and King Crimson? And the next thing I knew, it like had, sentences started saying things like Going for the One and Schizoid Man. And I was like, really? Like you just took keywords out of Yes and King Crimson songs and stuck them in here?
I mean, here's one more thought. It could be that they've discovered how to do reinforcement learning and make them a lot smarter.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do reinforcement learning on everything. Coding is the main case you can do it on, because when you write code, it either runs or not. And then you can see, does it do the thing I wanted? No, it's easy to tell. But with what you just said, like nobody can show you the song lyrics and be like, was this a good way of using the influence of King Crimson in these song lyrics by Jim Benson? Like that question doesn't come up very often. And there's no way to give, like, you might have liked those or not liked those. Who knows what somebody else would have thought, or if, so it's very hard for them to make that any better. Like they can't really apply reinforcement learning to it. It's too amorphous.
Yeah, for this one, it kind of treated like my song like a Mad Lib, and then it just said like insert King Crimson title here. Insert. I was like, really?
Although I would say that is still kind of a prompting issue, because you could be like, imagine that you are Peter. What was his name? Peter Sinfield, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You are Peter Sinfield, the lyricist for early King Crimson, and you're writing a song about hot air balloons or something. Don't repeat any of the stuff you used in other songs. But
I definitely know that I would need to go back and write the thing again. But it was just, I got it, and I started reading it. I was just like, oh wow, this is why I fear AI is running Microsoft right now.
That's a perfect example of what we were talking about, though, because you did that, and then you could probably, I don't know, to be honest, I don't think you could probably get all the lyrics out of something like that and have them be good. But at least you could get closer if you did that a few more times, and we're like, look, okay, do it again, but don't use any of the specific titles of
yes I'm looking for the influence, not the plagiarism.
And
not
and then
quotes.
Of course, I know you're well familiar with this, but then another way to do it would be to analyze all the lyrics or something. I mean, anyway.
Build a Frippian heuristic or something. Okay, well, so this as I expected, this 20-minute talk has become 40 minutes. All right, so say goodbye to the nice people, John. It's been good having you here.
I thought we were done already. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay.
Well, it's been great talking about this, Jim. I know we could talk about it forever, but we have to stop sometime. So perhaps we'll talk about this again.